Hey everyone, I saw a really nice game in the round 4 of the Isle of Man International, played between Luke McShane and Baskaran Adhiban. Now Luke McShane is known as one of the best amateur players in the world because he actually has a full-time job as well as playing top-level chess. But in this game, McShane was playing white, Adhiban was playing black. So McShane played e4, black played c5, and after knight to f3, d6, McShane hit black with bishop b5 check. And we're into a Sicilian Moscow variation, and black plays bishop d7 to avoid the check. After bishop takes d7, black actually played the rare move knight takes d7. Usually black takes with the queen here. It makes a lot more sense due to black can play knight to c6. For instance, the main moves now are actually castles and knight c6, followed by c3, and black can continue with knight to f6, rook e1, e6, d4, captures, d5, e5 and knight to e4. And these are actually the main moves in the database. But unusually black now played knight takes d7. So this is arguably not as strong because now knight c6 can't be played and stop white's preparing moves like d4. But it's still very much an even game, but you have to say white is slightly better already. McShane castled in this position, and black continued with knight to f6, attacking e5. So McShane played queen to e2 to defend the pawn, and black played e6. So McShane now opens in the centre with d4, which makes a lot of sense. Black captures, the knight recaptures, and black plays a6, stopping any knight to b5 ideas, which would really undermine the d6 pawn if white could manage to get a knight to b5. So that's why black plays a6. And McShane now plays very logically. He played the move c4, so this really stops black from strengthening his d6 pawn by playing d5. So the e4 pawn and c4 pawn cover this d5 square and really suffocate black's central squares. So rook c8 from black and b3 from white. So b3 just protects the c4 pawn, and black develops with g6, bishop b2 from white, bishop g7 from black. White plays knight to c3, black castles, and white plays rook a d1. So already targeting this d6 pawn inadvertently. And black defends with queen c7 and gets his queen off this d file. Now McShane plays in a very, let's say, AlphaZero style here, because he could play the move f4 straight away here in this position. Black could play queen c5 and king h1, unpinning themselves. But now black can play e5, and this sort of stops white's momentum. After knight to a4, hitting the queen can retreat, and after takes knight to f3, it's a rather even position. So I think in the game after queen c7, McShane played a very nice move, very AlphaZero-esque, king h1, just keeping his king safe. And now he can play f4 after this move, and there's no queen c5s to pin this knight. So in the game, rook fd8 was played, and now McShane plays the move f4, so preparing f5, which will cause black a number of problems. So there's no question black is still very much in this game, but I think if black could replay this game, he wouldn't play this next move. Black played queen to b8, and I don't think this is a great move. It sort of traps their queen in the corner of the board. I know they're probably preparing a move like b5 perhaps, but still this queen is now very limited and doesn't have much scope. To demonstrate this, white can actually play the move g4 here, preparing f5 or g5. Play could continue knight c5, and white can crash in with the move f5, so hitting e6 with the knight and the pawn, and also preparing b4 to remove a defender off this e6 pawn at a later date. Play could continue rook e8, and after g5, knight h5. Now white can play b4 hitting the knight, and once it retreats back, play c5, and amazingly black's under immense pressure now. So the point is that d takes c5 would be met by knight takes e6, and after f takes e6 there's rook takes d7, and white very much has this position under control. So instead of d takes c5, e takes f5 was also a possibility, but now white can sacrifice. Knight takes f5, g takes f5 and queen takes h5. And again, white is clearly winning this game now, mainly due to the fact that this queen is so weak. So after this queen b8 move, even a straightforward f5 could have been played, because if e takes f5, there's e takes f5, rook e8 and queen f3. White's opening up lines against black, and this d6 pawn and queen on b8 look very weak. So if we go back to the game, queen b8 was just played. McShane decided to play the move knight to f3 instead. The point being, it now opens his rook to hit this d6 pawn. And white will probably play the move f5 next, followed by maybe knight to g5 even. But in the game, black played knight to h5, and I'm not sure about this move either. So what black's done is opened their bishop up, but this allows the queen to hit the knight on h5, and there could be some sacrifices to do with hitting g6 at some point. For instance here, knight g5 was given as a very good move. And this is because after, let's say, h6, white can play knight takes f7, and after king takes f7, play f5. So white's just sacrificed the knight, but now has immense play. If black captures this pawn, then white can recapture, and again undermine this g6 pawn and the knight on h5 at the same time. Black will be forced to retreat, king g8, but then white can play f takes e6, after knight to f6, play g4. And again we see this queen on b8 is very offside. The knight's getting hit on h5, and it doesn't have a square to go to. So white will be very happy with this position. But I like McShane's move that they played in the game. So black's just played knight h5, McShane now played f5, so hitting black's king side. Black played rook to e8 to try and defend this e6 pawn, but McShane captures on e6, f takes e6, and now a good move, e5. The point being that this d6 pawn is still pinned because the rook can take on d7, and this pretty much forces black to take on e5 with the knight. And McShane plays it very simple. He plays knight takes e5, and now bishop takes e5. I don't think black wants to play d takes e5 in this position, because then you have two doubled central pawns, and these two rooks have very nice open files against black. So bishop takes e5 was played, and McShane played knight to e4, so hitting this d6 pawn once again, and also threatening to double black's pawns with bishop takes e5. So bishop takes b2 was played, and now queen takes b2. So this is a very tricky position for black. I think if black plays normally with rook f8 here, then white starts winning pawns with queen to d4. Play would continue rook takes f1, rook takes f1, and maybe black can play rook f8. But after rook d1, black's going to lose this d6 pawn. The point is, let's say rook d8 to try and defend it. White can play g4, and knight g7 is met by knight to f6 check, king h8, and then rook to d3. And there's pretty much no way to stop moves like rook h3 and rook takes h7. If we go back to this position where white's attacking this d6 pawn, the best move given by Stockfish is queen to d8. But this is nicely met with knight takes d6. White has won their pawn back, but now has an excellent position and will probably win this e6 pawn at a later date, no doubt. And he's also attacking this b7 pawn at the same time. So white is very much in the driving seat. But let's get back to the game. So after queen takes b2, black played the move d5, hitting the knight on e4. And this is where McShane played an incredible move. If white moves this knight away, I feel that black is getting very much back into the game. So let's say knight to d2. Black can play the move b5 and already is probably slightly better. So in this position, McShane now had to play a great move. He played the move g4. The point is that this pawn now hits the knight on h5, which is a defender of this f6 square. So if this knight ever moves away, white will play knight to f6 check. So black is forced to capture the knight on e4, which is what happened in the game. McShane took on h5, and now black played the move e5. McShane just now plays it very simply. He plays h takes g6, h takes g6, and queen g2. So hitting two pawns at the same time, this pawn on e4 and the pawn on g6. And there's not really a way for black to defend. I was thinking rook e6, but this is strongly met with queen g4 hitting the rook. And if rook e8, white can play rook to d7. The point being that after, let's say, queen c8, white plays rook ff7, and we're just going to try and mate the black king with rook to g7 or rook to h7. So this is very much game over for black. Back to the game, rook c6 was played to defend this g6 pawn. But white carries on with the attack. We play rook to d7. Again, the same idea of trying to play rook to f7. Black plays rook to d6, so trying to trade rooks. But McShane could play rook f7 here if he wanted to, because after rook takes d7, this is met by queen takes g6, king h8 and queen g7 mate. So if white plays rook ff7, black will be forced to play rook d1 with check. After rook takes d1, king takes f7. There's a nice move, queen h3. The point being that now white's ready to play rook to d7. And if rook h8, there's queen d7 check, king f6, and rook d6 from white. After king g5, queen to e7, white's got black in a mating net. For instance, black can continue king f4, and white will play queen to f6, and will mate black very shortly. So here rook f7 was very much on the table, but McShane just played rook d to f7 instead. Black played queen to c8, and McShane played rook to f6, so preparing queen takes g6. So black is forced to take, white recaptures, and black plays rook to e7, and McShane played rook takes g6 with check, king h8, and now queen to g5. The point being that white wants to play queen h5 check, followed by queen takes e5. Black played queen to f8, and McShane follows up with their plan. Queen h5 check, rook h7, queen takes e5 check, and rook to g7. And how do you think white finished off this game? Well, he did it very simply. Queen takes g7 check, queen takes g7, rook takes g7, the king recaptures, and white plays king to g2, and this is a one-in game for white, and black resigned the game. So for instance, let's just go through this quickly. King f6, white can play king f2, and if king e5, there's king e3. And the point being that now white can just launch this pawn up the board, take this pawn and win these two other pawns once the king has to move to defend. So I just thought this was a very nicely played game by Luke McShane. After this queen b8 move, he made the game look very simple, and he's now on, I believe, 3.5 out of 4 in one of the toughest Swiss events ever created in the Isle of Man. So I hope to post more of these Isle of Man games very soon. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my analysis, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.